Hello everybody. Namaste to everyone out there. There's been some interesting messages coming through, and I want to talk about it because I was just tuning into the collective, just kind of hearing what's going on, and kind of in the collective soup we can pick out a thread and discuss it. The one that was coming through was about opposition, okay, opposing forces, and I want to have a little talk about this because I was just having my own reflection on duality. On basically frequency, duality, and why opposing forces connect, collide, so on and so forth. Just because there's a lot of kind of like revelation and internal processing and truth exposure of things in my own reality. So I want to talk about this, and we're going to talk a little bit about opposing forces and what came through with the opposing forces, right? Or in opposition. The two threads that were coming through, which were very drastic, very polarized, they're very contrasting to one another. One is love and one is war. Okay, so in the spectrum, right? In the spectrum of frequencies available in the universe, we have many choices to be able to pick what frequency we tune to and work with as a part of our as a part of how we tune, how we represent ourselves, represent the collective, and also there's so many other factors like coming from different universes, different star systems, different planetary alignments, and soul paths, right? And so when there is opposition, like we're seeing this right now, this is a lot of what occurs with the bifurcation, okay? So in the ascension cycle, we have what's called the bifurcation, the 3D, 5D split. So what happens is this is how worlds kind of begin to separate. And this is where we could start to feel incongruency with others or incongruency with other trajectories and how we navigate, okay, having relationships, friendships, partnerships, connections in our own life is recognizing when things are out of tune. So when it comes to opposition, love and war exist on two completely opposite ends of the spectrum, right? So what happens is when one is living at one bandwidth and the other is living at another bandwidth, when those bandwidths meet at the middle, this is where we call what creates an opposition, because there's a collision of energies, okay? So they don't coincide. Now, people can start to play in what we would call paradox. So paradox, for instance, is like the love of war, right? What we have is we have two frequencies there, love and fear, that are making their way into the field, and what we call this is a cross purpose. What ends up is it creates its own conflict within the physical body, because fear and love cannot occupy the same space at the same time. When they do, what it creates is a misfire or an incongruency, and what starts to happen is it creates confusion. So when we have cross purposes, right? So we could even go into let's see, what's another one? Another one that's come up for me of a cross purpose has been, I believe in miracles, but I live in lack consciousness. And so as a result, those kind of stop one another and creates what we would call a stagnancy or a disruption in evolution. And so what's going on right now is this is a part of the bifurcation cycle. So what happens is when some choose whatever path they choose, no judgment, right? It's just a pathway. Is that what happens is there can be conflict in those energetics because the fields are operating with different spin rates. Once again, it doesn't make one better or one worse, okay? There's no judgment here. It's just two different universes, and what happens is when one is spinning very fast and the other might be spinning at a slower speed, okay? We're looking at toroidal field spin, we're looking at the atomic spin rate of the cellular body, we're looking at the Merkaba, okay, in the form of energetics. What happens is one either now has to rise up to the speed of the other, or the other has to slow down. When both energetics are firm in their ways, what happens? We create this incongruency, which creates more of that feeling of separation. I found for myself today this feeling within myself of how lonely it is to be love, okay? And I was like, this is weird. Why is that, right? And I recognize that the more light that one holds, the more that you touch on others' shadows, okay, or unconsciousness, or you can be a disturbance in the field. Just as the war or the chaos energy can be a disturbance in the other field as well. So this is the other reason why when triggering begins to occur within the fields, and recognizing when is an opportune time to separate the fields and to recognize that everyone's universe is perfect for where they're at right now, and it's not up to us to begin to shift, change, save, or to shift someone into another direction, nor is it a time for us to belittle ourselves and to dim our glow to live in coexistence with certain frequencies. And I notice it's then, how do we all operate at different bandwidths but can be able to coexist at the same time? Well, the thing is that it's about vibration. And when it's about vibration, the incongruency can be felt. And what can start to occur is that people can begin to personalize this. They start to then look at their own judgments. They either judge, okay, and I've seen this happen, there's either a judgment of the opposition, of the opposing force, or what happens is the disconnect is felt and one or more individuals begin personalizing the disconnect, okay? So if I'm playing my guitar and I play what is called a discord, the discord, the intervals between the two notes create a wobble in the bandwidth that can be heard, okay? There are some of us that have been able to find beauty in discord. So me growing up as a metal kid and really into like metalcore and hardcore in my early days, I've been able to find beauty in certain discords, right? And as I'm hearing right now, there's beauty in the breakdown. So then what it requires is that to harmonize those bandwidths is both frequencies have to make an agreement. The agreement is either one lowers its bandwidth or the other one rises up to meet it. Now, the thing is this is what happens when we're playing in the game of polarity, right? In the game of polarity, we can start to allow these energies to affect us. In the pathway, okay, notice the different word, in the pathway of neutrality, we could witness and observe it, but don't have to hang on to it. So as the bifurcation cycle is splitting more and more, and we're having more of the separation of the 3D, 5D, old Earth, new Earth, whatever we want to name it, right? We're just noticing the timelines are shifting more and more and more, and there's greater gap. The gap can be felt between the two worlds and between the two realities, two universes, whatever it is. And so this is when the choice point is, do we keep the integrity of the soul and keep the integrity of what makes us feel good and allow the harmonies to naturally, organically align if they're meant to, or do we keep holding on? When it comes to abandonment, okay, when it comes to abandonment, and this is including myself, one will hold on to something that one might call a sinking ship, right? Because it holds on till the very last moment, and right when the water is going down, that's when you jump ship. Or right when it's getting into the water, you jump ship. Or you recognize that things just aren't meant to be in this now moment. And that doesn't always mean that that's the way it's going to be for the rest of your life, okay? This is how we open up flow. So open up flow is allowing yourself to recognize when fields don't meet in the middle and allow space for separation. Don't cling on or hold on to anything and allow things to align organically, right? This is a part of healthy detachment, and it's a part of neutrality, honoring your path, right? When worlds collide, realities collide, fields collide, you can begin to create timelines and pathways. And those pathways can end up in so many different ways. The pathway is either beautiful, glorious, or it's a karmic cycle, or it can go, it exists, those pathways exist multidimensionally. So you're never stuck to one vibrational bandwidth, and choices on the journey between both parties meeting in the field is what creates and propagates the pathway. So if both parties choose self-love and self-honoring, that's going to align a different pathway than one with attachment. This can happen with co-creation as well. So with co-creation, the belief systems need to align in order for that to be a harmonious union in co-creation. If the belief systems don't align, the radical differences of opinion can begin to create what we would call an unstable field, right? And so when this When we see this instability, right, of the energetics, what happens is it creates a moment of a trigger point or a catalyst. The catalyst blows open the experience for all parties to witness what is out of alignment, and then it's an opportunity for all parties to come back and to realign the belief systems so everything can be harmonious in the co-creative experience. Co-creation occurs all the time. It's not just business. We can see this as business, partnership, friendship, co-creation with land, okay, co-creation with Gaia, collective networks, neural networking, thought processes. When we start to witness this, we recognize how lonely sometimes the experience can feel for ourselves. And I'm currently going through this similar feeling. So if you're going through this right now, all right, I want to let you know you're not alone, right? I had this moment earlier where I found that I was going into victim consciousness, right? And I'm learning to catch myself when I'm going victim. And I was like, wow, how lonely it is to be love. And then I caught myself. Wait a minute. Hold on. Two-way, okay? The radio signal goes two ways. There is the transmission of the energy and the reception of the energy and of the frequency as well. So we have to be mindful of when our energy is transmitting, okay? And if you are constantly transmitting and pushing out this energy, yet you feel like it's not met or it's not reciprocated, there are variables to that. One being, are you in alignment with the reality to be able to receive that, right? So we have to look at collective energies. Is that what you're looking for to receive available within the collective field that you're operating in? There's one factor. Another one is, are you open to receiving? Or are you constantly transmitting so much that you're not able to receive the signal on the other end? That's another factor. The thing is that with loneliness and separation can come this, even in the spirit of unconditional love and in the spirit of forgiveness, we can find the creeping up of victim consciousness. And it's especially prevalent right now, okay? Because the victim and the victimizer, the victimization, is what has kept so many in those pathways, right? And what many of us would call the 3D trajectories. There's always been a villain. There's always been a good guy. I mean, we see it played out dramatically in television and in movies. So we are already subjected to that program just by walking into the movie theater. Just by turning on the television, we are witnessing how much of that role plays. We see it played out in the news and in the media. And this is where we recognize that these programs exist. They exist. They've been glorified. The stories have been glorified. And the stories have been made interesting, to the point where we in the consumerism model begin to actually go pay to be subjected to that programming. And so it's very easy to slip into victim consciousness. It's very simple to go there, right? Because it's so prevalent, and those storylines are what need to clear within all of us. Okay. It's what needs to clear within all of us. And so even for myself, witnessing how love can be a lonely island. Well, it can, because it triggers. The alchemy of love is there to assist in facilitating the witnessing or the mirroring, okay? The mirroring within other people of where that love isn't held from within. So as a result, we can almost feel like we're in constant combat, right? Because we're feeling the disruption or the disconnect in the energies, right? And so it can become cumbersome living as unconditional love, okay? But we have to look at, first off, where are we still trying to all pull people into a pathway rather than allowing them to be on their pathway and allowing the organic alignment to occur? Attachment, okay? Swaying, pulling, manipulating, controlling, even if it's in the basis of trying to bring someone to love, is still swaying, pulling, manipulation, and control. Same thing occurs when on the other side of the spectrum. If there is one that likes to play in duality and one who is living as oneness, and you're trying to pull someone into, it's the same thing. So even though the intention itself might be for a lesson or a learning or for expansion or for collective integration, right? If it's coming from the basis that is not on sovereignty, free will, autonomy for all, then we are still playing in that distortion. So you see, this is why we have to become super, super, super conscious of what is occurring if that's your call in this pathway. Some people don't become this aware, and that's okay. Myself, it's turned into something that's been very important for my reality, for what I'm called to do on my soul's path, and it might not be as important for another person, right? So it's not about judging yourself or creating the comparison that one person might have this awareness and another one doesn't. There is no lesser than or greater than. Now, in hierarchical structures and in duality and in less than, more than, and all of those ego games and ego traps, there is. But in the sense of unity and in oneness, right, there is none of that. There is just one. And it's about recognizing and witnessing the beauty of that light within the individual and allowing that to come forward. But especially as we're going through heavy transformational energies, like we have been. The really deep purging, right? The really deep stuff of collectively moving out a lot of energy, healing the ancestral lines, healing the trauma, healing our own past life stuff as well. You know, a lot of the energetics in the higher dimensions are coming down and are triggering off a lot, and it feels very uncomfortable. When I started to open up to higher dimensional consciousness and allowing energies in that were surpassing, you know, what we would call at the time 70, 90, and even 12D energies, it was really uncomfortable, right? It's really uncomfortable. And as soon as we recognize that the transformation process itself is uncomfortable, right? And we surrender to the fact that that feeling is uncomfortable, right? We can begin to understand and respect that all frequency ranges, all bandwidths, all emotions serve a role in our life, okay? We're here as feeling beings. Being a feeling being in a body is about feeling it all, plain and simple, okay? So we don't negate feelings, we don't distort feelings, we allow the feeling to be what it is. We allow every individual to be who they are. This is about common respect, and this is about peace, right? It's about making sure that we respect where everyone is on their journey, and we don't try to sway, pull, manipulate, maneuver, and we don't also cast out or judge. We just allow everyone to be who they are here and now. It's really important, right? Because some people are called to go into the what we would call love light, and that's their operating bandwidth. Some people go into more of what we would call the shadow work side of things, and that's their bandwidth. Each one serves all parts of the whole. Everyone is a cog in the wheel, or a cog in the machine of the orchestration of unification, in the orchestration of ascension, right? And so it's important for us to honor all of those pieces. But it's also recognizing that when there is a disconnection or there is a disruption in the current because of those energetics, it's okay to pull them apart. It's okay to separate the energies and go, this just isn't for me right now. Right? And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with this at all. Right? It's about mutual respect. If we can't agree as a collective, or even in the lightworking community, if we cannot, or shadow working community, whatever, right? Because not everything is love and light, and I get that. And by the way, love is light. So not everything is light, and I understand that. But in another perspective, it is light, right? So when the sun casts, because I want to go here about the light and the shadow stuff. When the sun casts light upon the land, and there's a tree blocking the light, it creates the shadow. So then we can start to get into more of a philosophical debate about this. Is there a shadow, or is it the light in the tree? Is it light play, right? It's a really interesting thing to recognize. I had a moment a little while ago where I was looking at the moon, and I noticed that when I'm staring at the moon, okay, that all I see is the moon. But as soon as my back is to the moon and I'm looking at the ground, I see my shadow. So then the question is that in perception, right, in perspective, if I don't observe my shadow, does a shadow exist? Okay, if I am not observing my shadow, does my shadow exist? Just like, does a bear shit in the woods, right? If a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? It's one of those questions that's kind of up in the air, right? It's all about perspective, and it can be fun to play with, but it's also recognizing that when we tune back to source, okay? So if we look at the sun casting light on a tree, that creates a shadow. If we return to the source of that transmission, the sun, It's all light. But there are things in the way. There are universal properties and certain dynamics, okay, at a quantum level that begin to create that shadow. All right. So whether we are observing the shadow or we are observing the sun, all perspectives are correct. This is what we talk about multidimensionality and the way universes are built and the way universes are experienced. So if we can allow the observer to observe the shadow, just as we allow the source to be the source, and we allow the observer of source and of all in neutrality to be what they are, we now gain a greater perspective on the value that we have on being able to hold different bandwidths and different scopes and perspectives. This is where we go into about the belief system, right? Every party is correct in this. No one is wrong. Yet the shame, blame, judgment, and guilt that we start to cast upon each other for having these perspectives and having these viewpoints is what creates separation. So when we're playing in the game of separation, we're playing in the better than, less than, one's on one side, one's on the, we create opposition. So the way we dissolve opposition is we allow all parties to have their viewpoint, and as they have their viewpoint, perfect as it may, that in itself is a reflection of God, because God or source or the universe or that level of consciousness wants us to observe all perspectives, because every perspective is perfect in the role of the soul's expansion and the soul's experience here on human earth. Okay, so souls have pathways. Souls have imprinting that they're meant to clear on that pathway. Souls have storylines that they're meant to walk through in order for their expansion and their growth. Not everyone is meant to ride on your train, just as you are not meant to ride on everyone's train. Okay, we have pit stops. Sometimes we share a subway, sometimes we share a taxi, sometimes we ride on our own. Okay, it's a part of weaving multidimensional consciousness and weaving threads of light in all that we do. As soon as we get comfortable to the unification, just as much as we get comfortable with the separation, the more we become harmonized with our reality, that it is about weaving. When we create attachment, we begin to start to create that dependency, the codependency, and all of those things that get mucky and mushy and block everyone from being able to evolve. Okay, so this is where we step into what we would call allowance, allow. Okay, allow. We can be, one person can be on the freeway at 90 miles an hour, the other person can be 45 on the freeway, and it's okay. All right, and I just went through this. My RV, I cannot go above 45 miles an hour on the freeway. And it was interesting because going at that slower rate and having all these people burning by and honking their horn and being complete, whatever they were, on the reality, it taught me how to just be at peace with where I am here and now, right? As soon as we open up to the reception of this is where we're at, this is my reality, this is how I'm going, whether I'm spinning fast or I'm spinning slow, whether I'm conscious or unconscious, whether I'm galactic or I'm elemental or I'm God or demigod, goddess, fairy, elven, dragon, the whole kit and caboodle, right? No matter where you're at, as soon as you land in this perspective that here I am and where I am is perfect for me right now. There's room for evolution, there's room for growth, there's room for expansion, there's also room to just be, there's also room to play. There's a whole smorgasbord of ways of being and doing available into the reality, consciously and unconsciously. Okay, and as soon as we recognize that, we begin to open up to a whole different experience, that we don't have to fix to anything or attach to anything. We can allow and we can switch very quickly. This is about how to navigate dimensions. When we're navigating dimensions with co-creative relationships and partnerships and friends and connections and family and collectives and the conscious and the unconscious and all these different things, we learn how to weave. Okay, and this is that bob and weave, right? This is that becoming Floyd Mayweather, right? In the spiritual journey. And it doesn't mean that we've got the dukes up, right? But we learn how to bob and weave and how to shift our focus and our attention based upon what reality we are facing, right? So if you imagine that every person that you face has their own reality, you can see why realities sometimes just don't mesh and blend. And it's not personal, right? It's like, well, sometimes it is. But it doesn't have to be. It could just be witnessed as like, we have two different universes and that's okay. And some days we have the same universe and some days we don't, right? It doesn't make one thing wrong or bad, right? It really is truly about deep honor and deep sacred respect for where everyone is, right? And to allow them to be who they are authentically, because so much in this life we have tried to change, including myself, tried to change to fit a mold and tried to change to fill ourselves up. And while we are in the process of self-discovery, okay, remembering who we are, what starts to happen is, for those of us that don't, and myself included with this, don't have a firm, deep, sacred connection for who they are, especially as with transformation, we're constantly evolving, is what happens is we can almost become shapeshifters, where we blend to fit in rather than standing in who we are, right? Because that's a part of that, is that some of us, so my soul's journey is like this, I have been to the buffet and I've tried everything and I keep trying everything. Why? Because that's a part of my experience, is I want to have a little bit of everything. I want to try have a flavor of this, a flavor of that, with a dash of this and a dash of that, to have that soul's experience and that soul's expression. That's what's created the acceleration and the evolution of myself, is weaving in and out of so many different collectives, different oversoul groups, different pathways, different areas, different regions, different ways, different social classes even. It's been all over the board, right? So then what happens at the end of those kinds of experiences that are really accelerated, and we do have what we would call that shapeshifter energy, right? Is then it's about finding who we are, right? Very fundamentally, not holding on too hard to the point where we don't shift and change, but being loose enough to where we can open up to flow and we can open up to different perspectives, right? But a part of honoring and the integrity of the soul is to know what is aligned with the soul in its unified essence, okay? When we're weaving through different soul aspects, okay? So when I'm in my feminine energy, I'm a completely different person when I'm in my masculine energy. When I'm balanced in those two energetics, I'm a different person. When I'm embodying my dragon, I'm different than when I'm in my commander. When I'm super galactic, I'm different than when I'm in my fairy. And this is a part of weaving in and out of what we call multidimensional consciousness, and having different aspects that we work with, right? So if you've got a smorgasbord, once again, love this word, of soul aspects that you weave through, and you haven't fully unified and integrated, this is where we can feel like we're constantly shifting and changing, especially when we are clearing timelines and pathways. When we're clearing timelines and when we're clearing pathways associated with the soul aspects, and we're working through the integration of clearing all of the imprints from the soul and all of those pathways and timelines and the karma and all that stuff, we could begin to feel like we're a different person every single day. And I notice that for myself, especially as we're weaving through the trinitization, mother, father, child, in the divine aspects, and we're working through all the mother stuff, all the father stuff, and all the child stuff. It can start to feel like, who are we? This is where people can start to feel lost, right? And it's okay. You're in a process of discovery, and as we are losing more of an attachment to the identity of who we are, to allow more of a discovery at a soul level of who we are, this occurs, right? We try on many different suits, and we eat many different soups to find which recipe is right for us. This is about playing with creation. Okay? This is how we play. And every recipe that you try and you taste, and it's a little bitter, or it's a little too sweet, or a little too salty, that will give you a clue on how to dial in the recipe of who you are, right? And this is about recognizing connection. Everything you see and observe in your reality that you don't like is getting you a step closer to everything you do like and everything that is soul aligned. So when you see something and you don't like it, you try the taste and you go, just not for me. What you get is an opportunity here. You can either sit there and judge it and just respect it, or you can also honor that recipe naturally, without having to change, is beautiful for another individual. Okay, it's perfect, right? So some days I'm an apple kid, some days I'm an orange kid, right? I don't try to change the apple because I really need an orange, and I don't try to change the orange because I really need an apple. I leave the orange and I let the orange be picked up by someone else who can enjoy that. This is how we work with creations, this is how we work with connections, this is how we work with partnerships, right? Because someone doesn't respect you as love, doesn't mean that your love is wrong. Just because someone disrespects you or doesn't respect you in shadow doesn't mean that your shadow is wrong. Just because someone might not understand you doesn't mean that you aren't capable of being understood. Just because someone doesn't fully see or know who you are doesn't mean that others won't. Okay? So we have to stop, all of us, fixating to the belief of all or nothing propositions and maximizing that cognitive distortion based upon the fact that we don't see it proven in our reality. This is where, for me, I love to play Dare to Dream. Okay? Dare to dream. I dare you to discover that which you truly are. Right? I dare you to find out what's going on with you deep within. I dare you to find that perfect person. I dare you to find that perfect friend group. It exists. In the infinite expressive version of the universe, okay, it does exist. And that's where we drive in the hope, the frequency of hope, to know that that is available. And it's the quest of discovering that from within, holding it long enough that the reality can catch up to that, and that we align to that. But a part of aligning to that might be that we have to pick up and move, or it might be that we have to change careers. This is why there are so many variables, right? You might have to shift locations. You might have to start taking different routes to work. You might have to go shop at a different grocery store to find that. Your universe is constantly cluing you in on how to receive that which you really do desire here and now. But it's about us consciously listening and observing the signals and witnessing when we have to change our route, when they give us a red light instead of a green light, when there's a slow down sign versus a stop sign, when we need to go left versus right, when we need to stay straight, and when we need to just allow everything and just be. Allow the reality to catch up to you, but allow yourself to be moved in the direction of that which you are looking for from within and without. Allow the master to show up for you in your experience. You won't miss it. You won't miss it. Everything that's meant for you will always be there for you. Even if you take a wrong turn, or you take a misguided step or a misguided action. That's when we recognize the perfection of the orchestration. There's no such thing as being misguided. Redirects occur on purpose. Okay? There's no accidents. There's no coincidence. Just divine orchestration. And as soon as we allow ourselves to live within that divine orchestration, we allow ourselves to be a part of the symphony. I love talking about music and symphonics here, right? You can allow yourself to be the symphony today by just playing your tune, right? And you have a choice. You can be the maestro, right? You can be the man orchestrating. You can also be the individual playing the instrument. You can be the observer of that entire thing, and you can also be all parts at once. You can dive in and out from multidimensionality and perspective-based awareness by elevating your consciousness. You can be the maestro. You can be the trumpet. You can be the trombone. You can be the cello. You can be the violin. You can be all of that at once. And that's what's really beautiful about multidimensionality and weaving in and out of those scopes of consciousness, is that you can become all of those things. You can be all of those things. Now, how do we become all of those things? It's taking a step back, allowing ourselves to have that experience. Today, I want to be the maestro, okay? Let's go into the viewpoint of the maestro. Today, I want to be the player. Okay? Today, I want to be the observer. And today I might want to be a little bit of everything. And some days I don't want to be a part of it. And that's okay. Sometimes we just need to walk to the beat of our own drum, because that's how we learn to find our true sound. That's how we find our song sometimes. When we keep playing the song of others, we can begin to disconnect from that which is our soul song. So sometimes it means go out on your own and find your song. And keep playing it, because it will sync up to someone else's song. And with some, your song might create discord in other songs. That's okay. This is a reality of choice. In the reality of choice, you get to choose. That's your freedom. That's your free will. That's your sovereignty, is to be able to choose. Now, cause and effect. Each choice will create an effect on pathways, on realities, on lessons, on universes. It's quantum, butterfly effect. It expands out, creates ripples. But we should not ever make a choice for fear of what the effect will be, or what the cause is. Because we can cripple in fear of making a choice, because we know that there are so many potentialities. A part of living this life and this creation is by making the choice, and knowing that there is, if we are viewing from the point of polarity, there can be destructive and constructive forces at work. Each both play a part in duality. In the oneness perspective, it just all is. Okay. We recognize that when we make a choice, and that there is cause and effect, the effect can create an experience for us. Some everlasting love, some complete disassembly of all that you are, to remember why you don't make certain decisions and certain choices. Each one is correct for the individual, but it's up to the individual on how they navigate those choices. We cannot force choice, we cannot control choice, and we cannot manipulate choice. We just allow everyone to make their choice and recognize that they are in coordination with their higher selves, whether they are connected or disconnected or conscious or unconscious. Everyone's got a universe, everyone's got a God, everyone's got a source that they are in co-creation with in every now moment. Now, whether they are consciously doing this and consciously connected, or they're not, or they are 5 minutes of the day, or it's only 12 hours a day. Everyone has a universe, everyone has a God, everyone has a source that is guiding them perfectly in every now moment. And we have to allow everyone to be guided. Hey guys, so obviously the phone cut out, and that's just the way it is. Perfect time to end anyways. So I want to thank you all for continually supporting, for subscribing, for the new people that are out there. I love you all unconditionally. If you'd like to donate and you'd like to support this channel, links are in the description box. And so with that, I will see you in another moment of the now. And until then, namaste.